Hey everybody, it's me, Kevin Wormhold here on The Exchange. We are live. We are live on our live stream. It is Monday, 7 p.m. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. And I want to thank my subscribers who are always with me. Thank you. We got a great episode coming up this week. But before we get to the episode, I need the people who have not subscribed yet to do that now. Subscribe, hit the bell so you get all notifications to the episode. What it does is it helps me continue to bring guests to you for free. Okay, all it is a little button push. It doesn't cost you anything. The more subscribers, the more likes, more comments, the more I can bring you free episodes of the podcast here on YouTube. Okay, YouTube is a tough grind, but as long as you guys keep supporting me here on YouTube, we'll keep coming, bringing you these episodes on YouTube. If you're not into the video thing, there is an audio link in every episode to the audio version of the podcast. So consider clicking that, going to whichever platform you prefer to use, and subscribe there. And you can just listen to it on your way into work. Not a big deal. But if you're here tuning in, let's get to our episode coming up. We have a great episode this week, as usual. And thank you for joining me here on The Exchange. Welcome. Enjoy the show.
We are live. I'm joined today by Brett Blackham. He is my first comic on the podcast, The Exchange. Thank you very much, Brett, for joining me.
You're welcome, Kevin. I'm glad to be the biggest joke at the front of your podcast. I'm excited.
Yeah. So you are from Utah.
Correct.
Okay? Tell me a little bit about growing up in Utah, because I live in New York, a very crowded and condensed area full of people that just step on each other. I can imagine Utah is a lot friendlier and a lot more open. Tell me about Utah.
I wouldn't dare say anything bad about New York, first off. I have been there and I love that place. It is very different, though. I grew up in a town of, 3 and a couple hours drive from Salt Lake City. Everyone knows each other. My family runs a business, so it was very unique in some ways, and probably not that unique anywhere outside of a major city. You're going to get a similar experience, is my guess. And I'm not sure what else I'd say. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, so that's a small family for Central Utah.
Yeah? Oh, yeah. 6 is small, huh? Well, my mother is one of 17, East New York, Brooklyn, back in the
There
day.
you go.
Yeah,
Wow.
But my grandmother was busy. Those days are long gone. You can't have that many kids here in New York anymore. You won't be able to fit them in your small apartment.
Yeah.
See, I love when somebody always says, I've been to New York. I love New York. I'm like, yeah, because you don't live here.
Right.
I love the country. It's like the opposite for me. I go to the Midwest. I do a lot of traveling to Chicago. My wife's from Chicago, so I spend a lot of time in the Midwest, outside the city of Chicago, in like Indiana and Iowa. She has family there. And I just love the country. I love the open air, outdoors, sitting back, being able to drink a beer on the porch and not see anybody. I love that feeling. Is that similar to like the Utah?
I do want to say that I appreciate your service in the military as well.
Oh, thanks.
It's just great. Anytime I have a chance to do that, I want to offer my appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you. And you know what? The USO is always looking for people to come. These guys need comedy. And that's why, I'm a big fan of comedy because of, something, a lot of people with PTSD and everything, they go to comics and love stand-up comedy as a release of stress, and that's something that I love about comics. You guys make people laugh. I mean,
yeah,
we need more of that. We are so divisive in today's country where people don't get along because of their political beliefs and whatnot. We need comedy. We need to laugh, and we need more of what you do.
One of the teachers that I've studied from, he believes that, he's an atheist, but he believes the sense of humor developed out of a need to process the awful things that we encounter as a human being. And there's probably some truth to that. Like gallows humor is a thing. Like, we're going to go be beheaded in the French Revolution. And that's, you got to joke about it, or else what else are you going to do? Just sit there and cry before they cut your head off? So
Right. So
comedy has,
it's an avenue to go to. And there's a lot of people are attacking comics today. I think we've seen, especially Chappelle's recent special, he got abused. I mean, was it raunchy? Yeah, but that's why you tuned into him, is because you want that. You know what he does. You know his type of comedy. Is there an attack on comedy? Is it harder? Do you find it for yourself to be able to tell jokes and have to kind of tread lightly on what you say?
I would answer that by saying absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't even think Dave Chappelle's material in that last special was that off base.
Right.
I actually am working on a book about, and one of the chapters is learning to process living in a multicultural setting of just being offended. Like if everyone's the same culture, no one will be offended ever. But if there are a bunch of different cultures, you're going to be perpetually bugged by what those people do. And so the skill set that I'd like to teach that I try to teach in that chapter, it would be to help people to learn to let things, pardon the cliches, roll off your back, or let, sticks and stones will break your bones, that sort of thing. But as far as comedy, part of the job is to tell the audience what's wrong. Like, so we make fun of things, and it is funny when someone, for a transgender person, so to speak, that has a natural irony to it, someone who's born a man and wants to become a woman. And so when Chappelle riffs on that, it's got some natural ironic setups and punchlines and some humor there. And it's unfortunate that people decide to be offended by that, because being offended is a decision, psychologically speaking.
And I get that the people are going to disagree on things, but I've always felt that watching a comic, you know what you're getting into. Like you watch Kershaw, Burt Kershaw, he's going to take off his shirt and be up there with his really overweight body naked on stage. That's part of the comic act. I mean, that's what you're there for. If he says something offensive,
he's chiseled. So it just depends on your preference for half male nudity.
How long have you been doing comedy?
I started it in 2010. So like 8-9 years. I've dabbled in it and studied it. I wanted to be an actor originally, took some lessons from Ty Burrell when he lived in Salt Lake City. He's the guy that plays Phil Dunphy on the Modern Family show on ABC.
Huh.
So when he took some acting lessons and got into it. I'm a little older for wanting to pursue acting and performance. I was 28 at that time.
Right.
And comedy just bit me. Maybe it was because it's the best, other than community theater, things close to me where no one knew who I was to start out, and I didn't live in a city. So comedy was a way to break into performing for people. And there's quite a skill set to it that I've been appreciative to learn, as being part of, connected to the audience, and not just standing up there droning on with my material, which I've tried before. We can talk about bombing if you want, because I'm semi-pro at that, but it's a great skill to learn.
I think it teaches you, okay, you're not going to go up your first time and be like the greatest comic ever. And I've heard other comics talk about this, on other podcasts. I never thought I'd be doing podcasts. I was shy growing up. Until I went into the military is where I got more confidence, but I wasn't always into just talking to strangers. This is the first time we're meeting and have a conversation, and I'm able to have a conversation with you. It took a while to break, but once you get it going, you keep going. And for comics, were you shy prior? Or were you always open, able to engage with people?
Well, first off, you're very handsome, so that puts me at ease. I appreciate it. I'll answer this way. When I was in middle school, my parents insisted that I get into music and performing a little bit. So I played trumpet and French horn. I played jazz drums in high school. I just did all those ensembles. And about the time I was a junior in high school, there was no more anxiety for performing, which I think was a great gift by my parents' insistence that I perform. The caveat to that is I still get a little anxiety when it's just going to be me and a mic on stage. Mm-hmm. And a few breaths, a few laughs, and I connect with those people and it goes away. But that might be why I have to do it, because it's got that's still a little bit of fear, and the reward is so valuable to me. Even if I'm not making any money, if I make people laugh, I have to keep doing this. It's a good. So I don't know if that's a great way to answer your question, but that's why maybe why I don't have as much anxiety as some other people. I've also learned along the way that anxiety and excitement are really physiologically related. So if you, whatever mental gymnastics you have to go through to say, oh, I'm not afraid, it's not a tiger, I'm not going to die today. Take a few breaths and use whatever physiological experiencing you're having and say, I'm excited to have this event happen. Right. So those kind of things have been valuable along the way for me.
So you mentioned before, like comics bombing, and you yourself had a bomb, and I'm sure I've done a couple of podcasts where I've listened to and I said, man, I sound like an ass. I don't want to play that one, but I have to because I've been promoting it, So like when you do have that experience where it's like, I'm getting like, maybe this isn't for me, where you pick yourself up and say, you know what? Next time I'm going to nail it. I'm going to get myself together, because that's a very tough process. A lot of people can't do that. People can't fail at something and then pick themselves up and go at it again. Some people just say, screw it, I ain't doing it. You continue to do it, and you've gotten better over the years. I think your comedy has progressed. I've watched your videos up on YouTube. There's some really funny material on there, and I suggest people go check it out. But yeah, like, what motivates you to say, you know what, I'm not letting me held back. I'm going to go for it again. I get back up again. Was it your upbringing?
Maybe. I'm a religious Latter-day Saint, Mormon for short. And there's a
Utah.
Yeah.
I probably figured that out from the Utah.
There you go. You can use conjecture there, or you could just ask me. That's fine. We're all a chip off the old block, if you can forgive a geographical joke, because the corner's missing. Anyway, so and it's Christianity based. So forgiving yourself for making a mistake is important, but also the concept of discipleship. So if your audience isn't religious or Christian, the disciples of Jesus Christ what were they? They followed him. And I just learned along the way that being motivated is a little bit worthless. Like, oh, I need to wait till my emotions are ready, and then I'm going to get out and hit the gym or write some more jokes or get on stage. It's a little worthless. That word disciple, the root is the same as discipline. So if you want something of value, you can't wait until you are motivated and excited to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do it. You have to there are days when you'll feel like that. Most days are average, and some days are like, why would I ever do that again? That was so embarrassing. You just have to keep going. You just be disciplined, and that's where you grow something of value rather than waiting to be motivated. So I don't know if that's a good answer.
No, I think that's a great answer, and I like the connection between what you learned in your faith and how you apply it to your everyday going as a comedian. Do you find yourself holding back in material because of faith, or do you just kind of let loose like most comics?
That's a great question. There's a little bit of an answer to it. My first, I call it a special, but my first privately taped recording, I paid for the venue, had charged some ticket seats and put it together. I had a lot of religious material in there. And a little bit, and having that material and going a little bit off the rails as far as my language. I had some curse words, the farm words, we call them here: shit, damn, hell, son of a bitch, asshole. You can bleep those if you need to. But so I don't know if being in Utah, I've always had that politically correct, oh, you can't say certain words or talk about certain topics or you'll offend people. And so it's kind of normal for me, this modern political culture. And so I did that recording, and then I did another recording with a lot of political stuff in it. I'm a libertarian thinker, and so I had a lot of, I'm totally comfortable blasting Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in the same sentence. Right. No problem with that. But I've realized at this point, that's a few years ago now as well, overt political stuff might get ratings on some networks for those big famous comedians, but I believe people are tired of hearing that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think. Oh, go on.
No, I'm going to say they want the escape to get away from that.
I think that's what most people like. That's right. In addition, I think young comics are infatuated with their genitalia. Maybe it's because I'm a little older, but male, female, doesn't matter. Like going blue, they call it. That can be very funny. I find it funny. I don't get offended. I've decided not to let anything offend me as much as I can. I can accept a person aggressing against another, but what you say, I try not to care. So overt sexuality, political stuff, and religious stuff. Gabriel Iglesias said it best at one of his shows that I attended. Those things divide us. Even he included sports, but I mean, I like the Jazz. You could probably use conjecture for that as well. But I just love, I love baseball. I could hang out with a New York Yankee fan and an LA Dodger fan, and know, like, just the love of the sport is more of my angle. But the point is, in my comedy, I try to avoid those things that divide us and use simple setups. One of the teachers I study online recommends that the genius grows out of a simple setup. And I've done that in the past before as well, having complex setups and then a punchline, and only 10% of the audience understands what I was trying to say. Right. And so the genius is in having something simple and then catapulting off of that for your punchline and your tags. So that was a long waffle that I hope I answered the question.
No, it answers the question. And you know what? I've actually heard that before. There's a major that I served under when I was in the Marines. He said, brilliance in basics. I just want you to be brilliant at your basic duties. You don't have to go overboard. You don't have to get crazy and complicated. If you do your basic function brilliantly, you'll achieve what I'm looking for. And I guess that's a comparison to what you just said, is to be brilliant at the basic. Don't get so complex, because when things get complex, I guess quality control gets lost, where you kind of lose like that, control over what you're trying to get, and you may go off on the tangent, or and a lot of comics set up that long punchline, and sometimes you get lost, and that punchline doesn't hit. Like you said, only 10% of people get it and laugh, and everybody else is like, I don't get, what was the last 10 minutes for? Like they lose it.
In the speech, yeah.
All right. So keep it simple, to get basic and hit the punchline, I think is a great. Life as a stand-up comic is grinding. Okay. You've explained to me prior to us recording, you have your, outside life. This is like your side hustle. You're growing this life. Tell me about the grind of being a stand-up comic.
The grind.
I guess the day-to-day challenges with, writing material.
The day-to-day challenges are when for me, when I'm refining material. Okay, I've got a basic joke, I've got some tag punchlines, and I'm growing this idea, and my wife's already heard it 15 times.
Yeah, she's probably sick. She's probably not laughing anymore, right?
She's like, how do I make it better? How to make it funnier? It's hard for her to answer that if she's heard it 3 times. Like, okay, I tweaked this word, I cut this sentence. She's like, oh yeah, it's better. That's all she can give me. You need a new audience, fresh ears who have never heard the joke. And that's just kind of how comedy works. Your setup needs to take people away from the truth. You're going to paint a picture in your mind based on the setup sentences or the setup tone or what the comic is doing. And then the punchline is over here. It reveals that story. And that's why you laugh, because there's something that could be misinterpreted in there. Like, and I thought it was over here and the punchline's over here. And that's why your brain triggers the laughter. So wanting to make that better on a day-to-day basis is difficult. You need a new audience all the time. So I've actually got there's a rehab center, and they get new people every 3 or 4 weeks. And so I do a free show for them because it's new adults. And God bless.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
But their IQ is not super high, which is fine, but that helps me make sure I'm simple in my setups.
Right.
That makes sense. And I'm not trying to say anything mean to anybody, but I have to use smaller words and be more simple. And then if I can make those people laugh, I can make drunks in a bar laugh.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's I never thought of going to a rehab center. Kind of rotates people in and out. I guess that's if you want different opinions. And it's nice to give a free show to people who could use a little laughter while they're trying to fight an addiction. I think that's great. I think that's a good idea. That's something that probably hasn't been. Yeah, that probably has. I haven't heard anybody say that before. That's pretty genius. That's good. You do a lot of traveling, like you operate out of Salt Lake, I know, but you do some things in Vegas. You travel a lot.
I've traveled to Colorado this year, California, Arizona, Salt Lake. I do a lot of corporate shows, and smaller rural Nevada and Utah areas. I do have young kids, and so I haven't pursued getting a lot of agents out there and getting me more work than I'm currently doing, just because I have the philosophy that, and this comes from religion as well, but also I've seen other podcasts and lectures where children who are young need their father in the home.
Right.
The direction, the stability, the training, and maybe it's more both parents. I don't want to be sexist about it, because if a kid's raised by a single parent, whether it's a mom or a dad, you don't get any parents because you're working and stuff. So you have a marriage sticking together is great, is best for the kids, because at least you get one parent at all times,
Right.
and you have a team of people who will die for those children. And so until my children get older, I don't even know if I want to work any much more than I am, a couple times a month. And I need to get a little bit of money so I can travel out of them, and I typically do, and that's about the level I want. I do a new joke every day on Instagram and Twitter, and that kind of satisfies me, interacting with some fans on there and followers. But that's about as much as I want to work for maybe the next 4 or 5 years till my kids are either in prison or in medical school, whatever they're doing.
Well, that's a good way to put it. It's nice to see somebody actually stick to the family first, and you have this drive to do comedy, but you're putting it enough to satisfy yourself. And thanks to technology, we're able to have a conversation. I'm able to promote you and get your voice out there, and you have your Instagram and social media where you're able to, I see you put jokes up on Twitter and Instagram. So that is, I guess, a great way to satisfy the urge. But at some point, you're looking at just. So, would you consider this time now more of a training phase for when your kids are older and you're ready to, get out there like full boat?
I haven't thought about it that way, but I think that is true. There's nothing. I mean, I'm hosting this next week for a fashion show. And that's not stand-up comedy per se, but they're going to let me do 5 minutes to start and 5 minutes while the judges are tabulating their scores. Yeah. Anything like that. They're going to pay me. It is training for the road. And the few runs that I have done in the comedy world that is a grind. And I'm happy to do it. I'm excited to do it. But yeah, you work really hard on stage. You're entertaining people for a couple hours a night, depending on how many shows you do. And then you're all day by yourself. That's a tough grind, and the few times I've done that, it's great, but being with those kids every day it's what's important. And so all I can do is get better in this training phase. That's a good way to put it. And environment I can tell jokes to and make people listen to me is gonna make me better, I believe.
Yeah, and I respect the fact that you put family first, and that's something that a lot of people in this country, unfortunately, have forgotten about. You do both stand-up in comedy clubs and corporate events. Explain the difference in how you have to deliver the comedy between corporate world and in a stand-up club.
People who go to stand-up comedy clubs kind of know what they're getting. They forgive you. They're on your side immediately. It's like, oh, it's a comedian up there trying to tell jokes. Now, if your first joke doesn't land very well, then you might make the audience nervous. But if you've got a great little opener and a few tags, and you play with the audience, they'll love you even if they don't agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
With a few caveats for some. I shouldn't say that. I think people who go to a comedy club they know what they're getting. They might get some profanity they wouldn't get out in the real world. They might get some rudeness that they wouldn't get out in the real world. But it's all for the sake of the jokes and the fun and this gallows humor. While we're all, instead of just waiting to die, we're trying to have some fun. Now, a corporate show is different, because maybe those people who are there don't even know there's a comedian tonight. Maybe they've never been to a comedy show or watched a special on Netflix. And so the tactic has to be a little different. It can look the same if you give your opener and you're there and in tune with the audience and they laugh. It's like a normal audience. Great, just keep rolling. But a lot of times in those settings, you tell a joke and people just sit there.
Right.
Now you have to change what you're doing, and
Right.
you almost have to become part of this party, and maybe make the show personal. Shelf your material for a minute and just talk to these people, and bring some material out, and just join the party. I already said it, but join the party and become part of that group of people. A great teacher online once said, when you're doing comedy, you're on stage, if you are present and you are playful, you will win.
Mm-hmm.
Some new comics particularly, and I've done this as recently as 2 years ago, start to bomb and then go into my head and start worrying about the material. Then I'm not in the room, I'm in my head.
Right.
Stay in that room, and if a joke doesn't land, that's the setup now. Now you're making fun of yourself. Wow, that was a moment. I can't believe I wrote something so stupid. I shouldn't have had so much Ambien last night. It doesn't matter what you say almost. Just be present and playful, and even if they don't laugh very much, at the end of the show, you're like, yeah, I liked that guy. It was fun to be in his presence and watch him entertain us.
Right, like where you bring the audience in, like you connect with them. You know, when you're doing a corporate event, kind of take some of the heat off yourself too. Yeah. Do you find it harder to do corporate events, corporate comedy, than in a stand-up club?
Harder. I don't know if I would find it harder. It's just different.
Just different. Okay.
A crowd of people who's listening to you is kind of that's what it is. It's a crowd of people, and there are 4 types of crowds. I don't know if I've ever gone over this before. There's a type of crowd that laughs at everything you say. You drop a punchline, if it's a weak little pun, and they just laugh. And you improvise something, and they laugh. And you make it a face, and they laugh. That's the best audience. They're not all like that.
Right.
Some audiences just want material. So you do a joke and then some tags, and they laugh, laugh, laugh. And then you improvise something, and they're like, why are you talking to me? Do your joke, man. And then there's another type of audience that doesn't want to hear material. Like your material's like, okay, it doesn't pull the laughter out. But if you improvise with them, if you play with them, then they laugh, and they really want that. Right. And then some audiences just don't laugh. I did that's the 4th type of audience. They're really fun. You do a joke, they don't laugh. You improvise, they don't laugh. You take your shirt off, they don't laugh.
They just stare at you, and it makes you real uncomfortable.
Right. So
how
those are the 4 types.
How long does a corporate event go? Is it like an hour-long session, a half hour, 5 minutes? How long does that go usually?
They typically won't pay you for a short show like that. I've only ever been asked to do 30 to 60-minute shows, and it varies. Like, do a half an hour show, do 45 minutes. It's a birthday, do an hour. It just depends.
Did they ever try to give you material like, hey, listen, here's the list of people I want you to make fun of. Could you make fun of these guys and pick on them? Did they do that? Yeah.
I even will ask for things because the comedy is in the details in a lot of ways. So hey, when was the guy born, and where does he work? What kind of sports team does he like? Just any information gives you ammunition. So I can lead in that way when I'm improvising and playing and doing crowd work with the audience.
So you do a lot of improv too with what you do too. Improv, I find, is hard. You ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm on HBO?
Is it an improv show then? Or?
It's Larry David, the guy that made Seinfeld. So he has a show, Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't think it's on anymore, but it was on HBO for 9 or 10 seasons. I did not know this, but that entire show is full improv. The entire show. And I was always amazed at how they could continue. It was always funny. And it's just I find that to be the hardest part of comedy, is being able to right on your feet, just continuously think of things and put things together. And I feel like you almost got to be pretty smart to put it all together and do the improv like you do.
Pretty
compared
smart.
To writing the material,
Have a good case of ADD doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
It's just because what we laugh because there are 2 converging ideas, 2 different ideas that converge. And so when you're improvising, the first rule of improv, I performed in a few improv troupes, is you accept the information that is presented, whether it's on screen or stage, or if it's just a solo act like me. Whatever the information comes in, that's the truth, and then you just add something to it.
Right.
So when you're improvising, it's almost easier, rather than being Brett and Kevin, we assume a character. And then when you assume a character like a Scottish peasant, now when someone offers something, that Scottish peasant list of characteristics gives you a platform to improvise, and then it's just funny because you're coming from a different angle. So if you think in character, improvisation becomes a little easier, and I think it's funnier and more entertaining when you're not trying to get off a laugh line, when you're responding in truth to that thing and adding something to the scene. That is more entertaining oftentimes than someone who's thinking, what's the joke? What's the pun? What's the setup? What's the misdirect? That's great. I love that kind of stuff. But when I watch improv theater, sometimes the best scenes aren't laugh out loud funny until the very end, and it comes together like a great meal. It's 5 courses.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I understand improv to perform it.
Comedy has become very I guess being a comic, you have to worry about the political aspect of things now, where you, like we talked a little bit before about offending people. Now, we talked a little bit about Chappelle and his special. Do you feel that there's way too much outside influence politically in comedy now? Do you feel like that it's kind of, you guys have to fight off this, I guess, everything's so micro-managed, everything that you say could be offensive, and how dare you say that? Do you find that difficult, performance-wise?
The answer is yes. But I think it goes beyond comedy. There are certain people who are infatuated with the concept of forcing others to do what's right, which even religious people. I live in Utah, and it's not the freest state in the union. There are people that love the idea of, well, you shouldn't be able to drink alcohol because that's wrong. And that's not how I read the scriptures. I read the scriptures as Jesus saying, let Caesar do his thing and let religion do your thing. And when you marry them, then you get, you corrupt both institutions. And so I think there are just too many people in our culture who want to use government or use rules or use ostracism to make people live how they want. Comedy is just a subset of that. And I think why comedians are attacked is because laughter at like if you believe something and someone laughs at it, the tendency is to be offended and to let that hurt you. I would like to train people not to let that happen. Just roll with it and accept it and let it, like, make fun of Mormons. We had polygamist wives. Yeah, that's hilarious. I know it's a 100-year-old joke, but it's very clever. Good job. That kind of thing. Just roll with it. And I think because comedians make people laugh, that really hurts the authoritarians around us. Like authoritarians, no, you have to be totally respectful of transgenderism or whatever that means. And I think, well, yeah, to an individual, sure, but the concept is funny. But they would like to use the sledgehammer of state power and threats to force people to not even make fun of anything. Because comedy is not a nice art form. There's someone's the butt of every joke. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's a thing, sometimes it's a group, and that's the way it is, and that's how we muddle through.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't laugh at yourself, I mean, I know on my day-to-day, and my wife has pointed it out, I do a lot of dumb shit. I get called out on it,
They're good at that.
I do so, right? I mean, if you need to be made fun of because of something you did, do it. That I should be able to take that criticism and laugh at it and say, and then shake it off. And I'm not so offended that I can't get on with the rest of my day. I feel like today everyone's so offended that it's hard. And comedy is an art form, as you said, and it's something that you have to study and learn to perform. And it's not an easy thing to do. Just get in front of people, complete strangers, and make them laugh. That has got to be one of the most difficult things when you don't know somebody. Make me laugh. I'm here to laugh. You have to make me laugh. Good luck, pal. And that's a difficult thing. And now you have to take into the fact, well, now I have to make all these people laugh, and I don't want to offend anybody because then they're gonna boo me and throw shit at me. That's where I think comedy needs to be left alone. Like, we need to be able to escape to something when you're having that rough day. I'm gonna put on Brett Blackham and watch him and have him make me laugh on Instagram today. That's what we need more of.
I think I agree with that. And I told you my philosophy earlier. I try to avoid those things that divide us. But I remember one show I gave, and it was a self-deprecating joke about I can't remember how I set it up, but I was talking about how my wife did make out with a rapper one time, but instead she chose me. Small lips, her jumping ability, and a 50-50 shot at skin cancer, and it doesn't exactly impress in the shower room. And I had a few tags on that.
Right.
And one of the ladies in the audience complained to the guy who organized it that I was making fun of black people because they had bigger lips. And so you have that. I wasn't making a race. I was maybe suggesting that my tiny lips were subpar. Right. It would be nice to have full lips. But she interpreted that as me dogging on black people for their beautiful lips, when I actually, in fact, a little jealous. So you have that threat on any joke. And my cousin even gave me crap for a joke. I said when I spent 7 days in Nashville, and I found these people that get to choose their own pronouns, which is amazing to me, because when I was in that city of Nashville, the pronoun y'all chose me.
Right.
So the punchline has nothing to do with people identifying with their new pronouns and stuff, but he didn't even like that it was in the setup and found it offensive. And so, like you said, that those landmines are everywhere. And in one sense, you just kind of have to be true to you and what you think is funny and how you're going to set people up to do the jokes. But you are absolutely right. When people just need to grow some thick skin. And if you are fat and ugly and someone calls you fat and ugly, I would love it if people were trained enough to say, "You're right, but ice cream tastes good. What can I do?" Yeah. Instead of let that hurt you. That's it's important skill.
Listen, I've gained quite a few pounds since my wife had kids and had some good home cooking over the years. Yeah, I'm a little bigger than I was. Someone calls me fat. Maybe, you know what? I guess I got to go to the gym more often. Stop eating. Like I just started this keto diet to try to shed a few pounds. But we got to be able to take some criticism.
Or just give up, go to the buffet. It doesn't, whatever. It's right.
It's your life, your choice. Yeah. And I like how, first off, you were making fun of yourself when you're talking about your small lips. Like you're
they're bigger if I get up here, right?
Yeah. But you're making fun of yourself. That's all right. And she took it the wrong way, and that's like one person in an audience. I guess you have to pay attention to not focus just on what one person out of all these people think. You're still making other people laugh, and you're making the more people you're making them happy at least, and getting them going. The mission to make people laugh is something that people who have bad days, people who are struggling, we touched before, PTSD, stuff like that. They need that place to go. How do you? You do a lot on Instagram and Twitter. Is that something that you just want to make sure that every day you're putting something out there?
Yeah, I was studying Aristotle for some reason because I'm a nerd, and he said,
maybe because you're a libertarian.
Yeah. It all starts there. It doesn't start with Ayn Rand. It starts with Aristotle, man. But what did he say? That you are what you repeatedly do. Mm-hmm. And I encountered that, and it was like in February last year. I thought, well, am I just practicing this hour of material for my next recording and for my audiences, or do I write jokes every day? Mm-hmm. And I just decided, good, bad, like some are okay and some are some bomb, and I misspell some words because I do it at 5 a.m. sometimes, but I don't care because I have to do it every day. I just decided that's what I am. That's what I do. And I produce a new material every day. And then I'll put a picture up every day, also on Instagram, particularly a picture, and then a joke about it, whether it's about me or a landscape or a meme that I ripped off of someone else's profile. And then I repost a video of mine. I'll have 7 to 20 on Instagram, and just cycle through those videos because I don't make as many videos as I make a new joke in the morning. And I just decided that's who I am, so I have to do it every day.
You told me a little bit before about your experience in Vegas. How is Vegas? Is it a very difficult place to do comedy, or you find it easier because it's more diverse in the audience? Because there's people from all over the country, I guess, that go to Vegas. They want to catch a comedy act. What is your experience with Vegas?
My experience is mostly comic, like birthday parties and shows and like bachelor parties and that sort of thing. So as far as the clubs and the open mics I've done,
Bachelor parties. Do you?
it is like say a very very diverse crowd typically who can afford alcohol at the same time. So I've enjoyed that. I did a great one where for Halloween a year or two ago where I was Santa. That's one of my acting jobs that pays me money in December month. And disguise my voice and sit the children on the knee. So that's kind of fun. But I got to merge those ideas and do stand up as Santa because they wanted everyone in character for Halloween. And it was very interesting type of crowd. When people are just wanting to go out and party, they don't listen as close, like at a bar or something, as a comedy club or. So it's more like a corporate event down there, depending on the club and the venue you're going to, and you need to pull away from your material and interact with some individuals and some couples, and if someone really laughs, maybe start a conversation and grow some improv out of that. But yeah, it's a great city, and for a religious person, I still just love Las Vegas.
I think it's like Sin City is Las Vegas, you know.
I think there's a reason that God put me in Central Utah because it's a 3 or 4 hour drive to the closest sports book, and I could just live in there making bets on football games and basketball games. But it's illegal here, so I can't do it. Right. But yeah, as far as Vegas goes, it's a great city. There's a lot more work in places like LA and New York, obviously, for population reasons. But it's that and Salt Lake City are the closest to me, so that's where I do most of the jobs.
Have you ever thought about going to a place like New York to do a show? New York.
I just need to cover the plane ride and stuff. So, but I just want to be away for like longer than a few days from my family as well. So just playing off of that. But if I could cover the cost, I don't even need to make any money. Go like do 2 or 3 days in New York. I've thought of doing that.
I'm going to make a recommendation because I live on Long Island here in Nassau County, where Governors, Comedy Club. There's 3 of them here. Big platform. Kevin James has performed at them, and they have like all. I mean, there's a bunch of comics that are trying to emerge and get out there, and a lot of famous people show up to these clubs. Check out Governors and look into definitely coming to New York. It's on Long Island, and it is got a great name for promoting new comics.
That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, if you come to New York, you have to check out Governors.
I love Kevin. I'm glad you brought him up. For being slightly portly, he's just delicious. I think.
I love his show, the King of Queens show.
That was great.
Me and my wife would like look at it and say like, that's kind of like us. I'm like, wait a second, I'm not that big, am I? You know, like it's like personality wise, how we interact with each other is pretty similar. So we were always a big fan of that show. And he's another comic that he's when he does his stand up. He's a clean stand-up. You would consider him clean compared to other comics. You know, he's not really that into, I guess, vulgar stuff. So I find that more difficult to do than the easy way to just blast out like you said, genitals and like all these other parts. Like it's a lot easier to get like dirty. I feel like it's harder to be a clean comic, but he's pulled it off because he's very popular, especially here on Long Island.
Yeah, there are several very good, clean comedians out there, and I appreciate that work. I think it is harder work. Even, what was her name? Eliza Schlesinger. I was watching a podcast she was on. It may have been Joe Rogan's. I can't remember. But she said her philosophy was that sex material, blue material, is easier because it's in common with everyone. The setup exists. Ether. You don't have to say anything. You just come out and make a sex joke, and everyone does it or is interested in it or has bad experiences and good experiences, and so it's just easier comedy, and that was kind of her reasoning why she tries to not write along those lines. Try to be more creative and come up with something new and not something that's common to everybody.
Right, I agree. It's definitely a lot more common that dirty comic, I would say, but altogether. I like what you're doing. I like where it's going. I think that people who want to follow you or get involved with your schedule, your shows, how do they keep in touch with you? What's your Instagram page, Twitter feed, everything, so people could check out what you're doing?
All right, cool. Yeah, so Twitter is Brett Blackham, just at Brett Blackham. Instagram is Brett Blackham Comedy. It was at Brett Blackham, but I got a page banned. Apparently, it's okay to make jokes about white supremacists. Don't put a picture of them up when you're making fun of them, or else it's going to draw complaints from the low IQ crowd. So that one got banned. But now it's Brett Blackham Comedy, and I don't do pictures of white supremacists as I make fun of them anymore. I still mock them, just no pictures. And then my website is brettblackham.com. People can book me through that website. And anyone who's in Utah, I've got a lot of shows here over the next few weeks because it's Christmas time. I'm hosting a fashion show in Richfield, Utah, if anyone knows that. And I'm doing the 29th, 30th, and 30th of November and the 2nd of December in Fairview, Utah. Smaller town, so I don't know if anyone will make it, but there's that. And then I've got some stuff in Las Vegas the second week of January. It's still, I don't have any specific dates because we're working it out and it might fall through. If it does, just go to Instagram and I'll complain about it there probably. And everyone, thank you for watching. Kevin is amazing. Everyone should watch this podcast so he can make $1 zillion.
Yeah, I would love to make. My wife would be happy. She likes to order things on Amazon. So
the millions for her, the millions for you, the zillions for her. That's
right. I don't. It's not for me really. It's for them. But I appreciate you coming on. I want to let everybody know, if you are watching this on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe bell on the bottom so you get notified. We will be live streaming every Monday at 7 p.m. The new episode of the podcast live streams. You will get notified and you can tune in. You can also watch it after it's been live streamed at any time. If you're listening on the audio version, we're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever your platform is. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, give her ratings, and make sure you check out my guests. The more ratings I get, the more exposure my guests who come on, like Brett, and you get to learn more about him, his comedy, and hopefully we will see you in New York sometime. Because if you come to New York, you better hit me up. I'm gonna come watch you perform over at Governor's. I think you should check out Governor's. It's a great place to go and do comedy. They have a real good reputation of promoting. So
I'll definitely do it.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on, and I appreciate it. And I hope to see you soon, bud.
You too. Make it a great day.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Subscribe to the show, like it, and comment. Also, if you want the audio version because you're traveling, you're in a car, and you can't watch it, you don't have time to watch the episodes, you could go in the show notes. There is a link provided. Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, whatever your pleasure may be. Join me and listen via the audio versions on those other platforms, okay? But I really like YouTube. I like the way it's working out. And if you can, subscribe. The more subscribers, the better the content I can provide you, and it costs you nothing. So I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.